This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's going on, Real MVPs? Hello and welcome to another episode of What's Your Fantasy? We've got Ricky Widmer across the table.
What's up, guys?
And I am Brandon Swanson, again here with you. We are very excited to talk fantasy baseball and talk about baseball, MLB. We are going, however, a winter storm across 20 states today certainly doesn't feel like maybe we should be playing baseball. And here in the lovely state of Illinois, in the city of Chicago, 40 degrees, and I think it was sleeting at some point today.
The best tweet I saw today was from Len Casper of the Chicago Cubs TV booth, where it was both of them in jackets, and his face was like, and it just said baseball. Like, yeah, this is baseball weather. Usually why I usually don't go to games until like June, July, until it officially warms up here in Chicago.
Oh, my goodness. It is absolutely freezing today after outstanding weather the last couple of days. We have been lucky for sure. But
because I told you that one story, right? This was, I want to say, the 2017 season after the Cubs won the World Series. Dave and I were going to go to the second home game, which was on ESPN. This was during the porta potty situation. Game got canceled because of rain. We rescheduled for July. Completely happy we rescheduled for July. Instead of a rainy April day, we got a nice July day.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Gotta love July baseball, baby.
Yes. You absolutely do, unless, of course, your team is not good and they're not winning. But at the same time, it's still fun going to the games. But, Ricky, I'm actually going to kick it over to you if you want to just let the fans know a little bit more about the tiers for Patreon. So of course of course you can always support. You can become a patron. Go to patreon.com. But the tiers have changed. They have changed drastically. And first off, every dollar we raise from now on in the year 2019, year of our Lord 2019, every single dollar is going towards a new studio for MVP. Bronze membership, you're going to get MVP podcast a month early. You get mock drafts and big boards a week early. You get access to the MVP Discord channel where you can talk with us and other patrons. Silver membership, you get to pick podcast topics that go on the show. And then gold membership, obviously, you get to call into a podcast of your choice and talk about the topic you would like to talk about. So go check out those tiers down below in that description. Awesome, Ricky. Thank you so much. And I'll keep it with you. Talk about how our team is doing. Fantasy baseball, it's difficult. Fantasy baseball is difficult. You have got
it's not as difficult as I thought it would be.
But here's the thing. Here's how I want to say it, is that it's more difficult than fantasy football. Fantasy football, you don't have to check it every single day if you don't want to, and you'll probably be just fine. You check it once at the end of the week, and you'd be okay. Fantasy baseball, if you check it at the end of the week, you've already missed so much. So it is difficult, especially if you're one who's unable to keep up with it. But apparently, Ricky Widmer finds all this time in his day. He's a teacher. They don't do much. But especially during the summer. But as summer months roll around. Ricky Widmer, please let us know how the league's going. How's our team doing? So our team is obviously, we're the best. We're the best around. No one's ever gonna keep us down. We are in first place, mainly because of myself, because of how active I am. I believe we have the most moves. Like if we were giving money per roster moves, I probably wouldn't be making as much moves. But I'm picking up, dropping people left and right. We are in first place at 73 overall. We are basically in first place of all of the batting categories except for stolen bases and average. We're in second stolen bases, third for average. And then pitching, we are good with wins, good with saves, okay with ERA, that we're in top 3 in all of those. We suck at strikeouts. We're near the bottom. We're like 8th when it comes to strikeouts. And then we're near the middle in whip, right there at 5 points. But how the standings roll out right now, we are in first. Team Spencer has moved up into second. They have succeeded Team Vasquez, who was flipping with us for a while at first place. Team Vasquez is at third. The New York Poopy Heads are in fourth. The Stats Man is in fifth.
Pickle Rick Dongs are in 6th. Trigger Hornet in 7. Iron Horde Sam, pardon me, is in 8. And then Team Root Tier, that's Kyle's team. Kyle is actually going to win the basketball league. He is in last place for the fantasy baseball league right now. So right now, we're looking good. Even right now, we are gaining 5 points as of current standings, daily stats on Wednesday.
That's awesome. I feel good about that. I think we've built a good team.
I play the win, baby.
I'm going to take a lot of credit for the moves that Ricky's making. Of course, I'm telling him to make all those moves. Actually, that's a joke. I've told him to make maybe 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm. A big one for me has been with our pitching, where we kind of didn't do that right. So I've picked up some starters that could maybe help us with Ks, and the only relievers we have on our team are guys that are going to get us save opportunities, because if you ain't getting saves, you're useless in fantasy baseball. Just useless.
So our first topic tonight is an interesting topic because it's an interesting storyline to start the season. The defending World Series champs, the Boston Red Sox, are looking anything but the World Series champ Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox are last in the AL East, yes, behind the Baltimore Orioles, if that's possible to do, and it apparently is. The Boston Red Sox are 3-9. They are 6.5 games back of the Tampa Bay Rays, actually, who are in first place, I think only because they played the White Sox the last 3 games and, of course, won all 3. But the Red Sox have been very, very shaky to start things off. They've scored 51 runs. That is less than the Rays, the Yankees, and the Orioles. They're only better than Toronto, who scored 36 runs. That is so low. They've given runs against, though, 79. Only 26 runs against Tampa Bay, 41 against the Yankees, 82 against Baltimore. They still have 5 wins, and 39 against Toronto. 79 runs the Boston Red Sox have given up. So when you go over to their pitching, and that's what we'll start with first, these are guys, and this number 1 guy, Chris Sale, a lot of people probably picked him up right away, and Chris Sale is killing a lot of teams. He has no wins. He has 3 losses already. ERA of 9. In 13 innings pitched, 16 hits, 13 runs, 4 homers, 4 walks, only 8 strikeouts. That is so uncharacteristic of Chris Sale. 8 strikeouts. He could have that in 4 innings. He doesn't have that through 13 innings. This has been a really hard start to the season for the Red Sox. David Price, 0-1. Eduardo Rodriguez, one of the guys that I said maybe keep an eye on, could be good. He's not. ERA is 12.38, 0-2, 8 innings pitched, 16 hits, 12 runs, 11 earned, 2 homers, 6 walks, 7 strikeouts. I mean, it has been hard times for the Boston Red Sox, and that's just their pitching, Ricky.
Yeah, and I would say really the only pitcher right now that if you own them, and not many people do, as let me look up for ESPN, he's only owned in 0.4% of leagues. The only pitcher that isn't killing you
which one
is Hector Velasquez. He's the only one not killing you if you own him on the Boston Red Sox, because he's only pitched 8 2/3 innings. He has an ERA of a 3.12, 7 strikeouts. But like for me, none of these guys are good right now. Chris Sale only had in 13 innings to start. So like you said, 3 starts, only 8 strikeouts, has an ERA of a 9. A 9. His whip isn't terrible, 1.54, but a 9 ERA, that's going to tank your ERA. You're going to be towards the bottom of your league. David Price, yeah, his ERA is ballooned at 6, but at least he has 13 strikeouts. But yet again, when you're averaging just over a strikeout an inning, that's not good either. And then, like you said, Rodriguez, in 8 innings, a 12.38 ERA, and even Porcello, a 13.5 ERA. All of these guys, if they are on your team, and of course, in our league, Sale, Price, you have, I'm going to say this name wrong, Nathan Eovaldi, and then Rodriguez and Porcello, those are the only ones owned. they're hurting you so much, mainly in that ERA category, because they're not like their ERAs are ballooned. They're not getting you a ton of strikeouts. And really, how many pitchers? They have 3 wins. Barnes, Brian Johnson, and Marcus Walden are the ones with the wins. So if you have any of the big guys on that team, you haven't even gotten a win towards your fantasy baseball team. So if I have Boston right now, like, you're not going to move from Chris Sale so early, but I might be panicking a little bit to where, I don't know, maybe I sit Chris Sale one start to see if he can get it back together. The risk you run, though, is him getting it together, and then great, I didn't have him in that day.
Yeah, it's been a really, really hard start for the Boston Red Sox, but as a fantasy owner, it's really been very difficult because these are almost unsittable guys. Their start comes around, you have them in your lineup. They are not on your bench. You are not dropping them because exactly what you said, Ricky, the fear that eventually they do figure it out, and it's when they're not on your team. That's the worst. That's the worst feeling to have.
Just to give you a comparison of it, Chris Sale is owned in 99.6% of leagues. Do you want to know his positional rank right now? 145. Yeah. He is the 145th best pitcher in fantasy. And most people had him at the top of the board. He was selected 9th overall in our league. 9th overall. Like, if I go to David Price, 97%, not even cracking the top 100. If I go to Rodriguez, 72%, not even cracking the top 50. He's just in the top 70. And then Porcello, 77% of leagues, he's just out of the top 170. So it's like, right now, I almost wonder what you do, because, like, if I have Rodriguez or Porcello, you might be able to get away with sitting them and being like, okay, well, I'll wait until they get into a groove. But if you have Price or Sale, you're not going to sit them. But at the same time, I kind of feel like if I have Price or Sale right now, I can't afford to take a hit against my ERA. So why would I even have them in the game, their next start? I would almost have them on my bench until they start getting things going, because every bad start that they have balloons your ERA for the season and brings you down in the roto rankings. Or if you're head-to-head, it's going to hurt you in that as well.
Do you foresee the Boston Red Sox, especially from a pitching standpoint, turning things around anytime soon?
You know, I do. And the reason being is, you know, I look at Chris Sale and the opponents that he's had to go up against. The first opponent he had was Seattle. Let's be honest. Seattle's been, like, I saw a tweet the other day, the Mariners are back. Like, Seattle has been on a tear this opening season, to where even if I pull up our team, we've got Omar Narvaez. We have Vogelbach. He's from Seattle. We've got D. Gordon, Seattle. Domingo Santana, Seattle. Tim Beckham, Seattle. We have a ton of Seattle guys on our team in that lineup, and it's proven dividends because obviously we're in first place right now. So, I mean, that first start, I almost look at it and go, okay, you basically played the Seattle Mariners, but, like, then the next game, it wasn't a terrible game for Chris Sale, but then that Toronto game kind of set it back to where I think it might take him a little bit. It might take him a start or two, and that's why I throw out the bench him for his next start, see how he does, instead of keeping him in and taking the option of him tanking your season stats even more.
Now, turning to a hitting side for the Red Sox, because there's plenty of good hitters over there for Boston, just not so far this year for the most part. So, you know, you look at some of the guys, Mitch Moreland, he's got a .257 batting average. He's got 4 homers and 10 RBIs. And now Mitch Moreland coming into the season isn't necessarily one of the Boston Red Sox that you're going to be hanging your hat on, but he's so far one of those guys that you have to look at. He's also got 3 doubles.
I would say pick him up.
Scored 5 runs. I mean, he's a guy who's definitely done pretty well so far. Xander Bogaerts, a guy that you can usually count on. He's batting .263. That's not bad. Only a homer, 3 RBIs, 4 doubles. Rafael Devers, 250 batting average. He has no homers and no RBIs yet.
And that's the thing. Like I'm looking at here, Mitch Moreland, I would actually look at him to be a player that you might want to think about picking up because he's available in most leagues. He's going to be available in 90% of fantasy leagues on ESPN. He's in the top 15 of first baseman right now. And the thing I like about him is the average isn't terrible at that 250 mark, but ribbies. He's knocking in those ribbies with 10 early on. He's going to get you, like, he's got some runs, got some home runs. Bogart right now, like, he's got the average. He's scoring some runs, but home run and RBIs you're not really going to get out of him right now. The one, though, you bring up Devers, I would actually stay away from him. I think that 250 ERA is kind of like a smokescreen.
Batting average.
Well, batting average. It's kind of like a smokescreen because although it's not terrible, the only other thing he is bringing to the table is those 7 runs. He hasn't hit a home run. He hasn't hit any RBIs this season. No. He's got 1 stolen base. The only guys on this team that are doing anything fantasy-wise, the best one I would have to say is either Mitch Moreland is there, but also Mookie Betts. Like he's been the #1 Red Sox for a reason. Like in our league, he was the 3rd overall pick in our draft. His average it's right around that 250 mark right now, but he's got runs, he's got some home runs, he's batting in some RBIs. The other one that's consistent is JD Martinez.
He's the best one. JD Martinez is the best one because
depending on what you're looking for. His average is great.
He's batting at 326. He has 3 homers and 8 RBIs.
Yep, and 6 runs. So he's giving you a little bit of everything.
I think that he's the best one. Mookie Betts will get it together, and I think eventually get to the point where JD Martinez is right now in terms of average.
Yeah,
but JD Martinez is the best one on this team right now, and he has been able to survive in this really slow start for Boston. He's been a really good bright spot, and I agree with you. I think Mitch Moreland is definitely a guy, if someone didn't pick him up already and you're looking around for him, definitely go get him. Mitch Moreland has been very consistent so far to start this season. It's actually a kind of a breath of fresh air for Boston and kind of a sigh of relief that somebody outside of their big hitters is able to also bring something to the table. You know who I am benching and this is something that I'm going to coin this year. Let's see, benching until further notice. So BIFN, a BU benching You're until right. BUFN, a buffin. A player I am buffing. So benching until further notice. Jackie Bradley Jr. 117, a buck 71. Pardon me, my dyslexia kicked in for a second. A buck 71 average, only 3 runs and an RBI is what he's giving you, and 2 stolen bases. Buffin. Bench him until further notice because he's not doing anything for your team right now. And if you're needing an average in a roto league, he is tanking your average with a buck 71. So Jackie Bradley's really never going to be a guy that's going to hit for extreme average, great average, but he's going to be a guy usually has in the past been able to crack out a lot of home runs and drive in a decent amount of RBIs. But so far this season, he has been slow. But again, the whole Boston team has been really slow. The thing that worries me the most is hitting. I think a lot of times that can come around. It's early. It's weather has been good, not great. Still cold. You've been in spring training where the weather's just amazing all the time. Now you're in the Northeast. The biggest thing I'm worried about, pitching. Yeah. Pitching doesn't always come around. Yeah. No, and that's the thing. Batters, you just got to kind of hit out of it. The pitching, though, it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how many people. I'll be honest, with these Red Sox, if they continue to struggle early on, I wonder how many people look to trade some of these Boston guys. Like if you have a Chris Sale or a David Price and they never get back to form, I wonder if early on someone tries to make a deal. And
one thing that you could do, let's say you're on the outside looking in, I wonder if there's going to be people in fantasy leagues that go, hey, while you're down on Chris Sale, I'm going to try to offer you a deal and kind of snag Chris Sale away. Do you think there'll be any people like that where it's like, hey, I think Chris Sale's going to turn it around. Let me try to offer this deal, which may not be the best offer for Chris Sale, but in a struggling time earlier in the year when you as a Chris Sale owner are panicking, do you think anyone should try to do that, to try to steal away a Chris Sale, a David Price, thinking that they will get better as the season goes on and that this early season performance is just a fluke?
I would for Chris Sale. I would not for David Price.
Okay.
I would not for David Price. This is more of the same that I think the Boston Red Sox saw back in 2017 when he really struggled. I believe it was 2017 when he really struggled. He kind of turned things around a little bit in 2018. He was certainly solid in the playoffs, but Chris Sale is that guy that I look at and I think he's not going to be kept down this long or for long. I'm surprised that he's been kept down this long, but he's a guy that I look at and I think he can definitely get it turned around.
No, that was just one thing that I thought of because, I don't think that Chris Sale struggles for the entire year. Eventually, like the point you brought up, as the weather gets better in the Northeast, the New England area, as the weather gets better, Chris Sale and this Red Sox team should get better as well. It's kind of like what I'm hoping for the Cubs. The weather's been kind of crappy here, although we haven't played at home all that long, and our home games we've been pretty good against the Pirates. If I'm a Boston owner of any of these guys, though, you're really hoping that they turn it around soon.
Absolutely, you are. Who would have thought we would have been talking about the Boston Red Sox, the reigning
struggling
world
Red
champions, Sox. That they would be so bad to start the season, last in the AL East. But Ricky, moving on to the next topic that we've got, and it's talking about some players who have so far early on. I know we're just couple of games in, couple of handfuls of games into a 162 season marathon. But who are some surprises? Who are some surprises that you look at and you're thinking, these guys have been pretty good to start the season, and they may actually keep this going and be consistent like this throughout the season?
The first one I'm going to throw out there is Jason Hayward. And the reason why is so if you're coming into this, I'm going to be speaking a lot of, kind of like when we do football, I speak for the non-PPR side. When I talk fantasy baseball, I'm going to be mainly focusing on Roto because that's what we do for our league. And Jason Hayward right now, although he's not, although he's not killing it in any one category, overall, he's had a really good start despite the struggles that the Cubs have had. Averages above a 320, 9 runs, 8 RBIs, has a sprinkling of stolen bases, a sprinkling of home runs. He's been a surprise to me because, if anything, it was his years in Chicago. First year was he couldn't hit the ball worth a damn. Last year was like, hey, maybe Jason Hayward kind of found it. And then this year has been kind of carrying off of that a little more. So that's one where I kind of look at where he's only owned in 33% of leagues. And out of all outfielders, he is ranked second in the position. So right now, he's one that's kind of surprised me to where it's like in our league, I even went ahead and picked him up because we needed some outfield help.
Ricky, I'm going to go with a guy from the San Diego Padres, and it is not Manny Machado. It is Hunter Renfroe, their right fielder. He's batting .333, 4 homers, 7 RBIs in 10 games in 30 at-bats. He's had a really strong start to this season. In the last couple of years, Hunter Renfroe, you look at him in 2017, 26 homers, 58 RBIs. He hit .231. Then last year, 26 homers, 68 RBIs, 10 more RBIs. He hit .248. So you think hopefully this year he's going to hit maybe 250, maybe 260, maybe hit 30 homers, maybe up to 80 RBIs or more. So I think a really strong start to the season for him for a San Diego Padre team that I think a lot of people still believe is not close to competing. Well, they haven't been playing all that bad so far to start this season. They've actually been playing pretty good. They have Manny Machado at third base. They've got Hunter Renfroe in right field. They've got Will Myers in left field. They've got over at first base. Gosh, who they got at first base? Guy from the Royals. Why can I not think of his name?
Hosmer.
Eric Hosmer over at first base. They've got a really good team when you look at
when he was drafted, Eric Hosmer, as they called him.
When you look at their offense, they're doing a really good job, and I think pitching wise, they have enough there to be able to compete and stay competitive. But Hunter Renfroe, I think, has been off to a really, really good start, and that's a guy that I would definitely keep an eye on.
You know who's one I'm going to throw out, and this is another one I'm biased because he's on our team? Your fake cousin, Dansby Swanson.
Yeah.
I looked at him. I had to pick him up because, yet again, batting over 300 to start the year. The thing I love most about him, 15, and most of them have come in the last 3 games. The last 4 games for Dansby Swanson. If my math is correct, and it is because I double-checked myself, 9 of his 15 RBIs have come since April 6th. Now, this could just be, hey, Dansby Swanson is having a hell of a series against Miami and then against Colorado so far. And I know he didn't play. I don't think he played today against the Colorado. He got a day off as we're recording this on Wednesday. But he is one, if he is open in your league, go ahead, pick him up. He's getting you RBIs. He's up in that average, and he's pretty good with runs and a couple home runs as well, to where he's one where it's like, if you need help right now, go ahead, pick him up. The only bad thing is he can only be slotted at a shortstop or utility position.
Another guy on our team, Daniel Vogelbach.
I was going to save him for you. I knew you really wanted to talk about Vogelbach.
I did because
former Cub, by the way.
This is a guy who, you look at what he's done the last couple of years. It's a whole lot of nothing. In 2017, he had 16 games. 2018, he had 37 games. In 8 games so far this year with the Seattle Mariners, the red freaking hot Seattle Mariners, he's batting .500, 5 homers, 9 RBIs. This guy is blasting the baseball with 6 walks. He is blasting the baseball. 5 homers, 4 doubles, 11 hits and 22 at bats, obviously 500, like I mentioned. He's doing an outstanding job. He killed the White Sox. He killed the Royals. This is a guy who I think stays healthy, gets in the lineup consistently. This is a guy who's going to have a really, really good season for a Mariners team that supposedly in a rebuild. I don't think so. I don't know who they were trying to shove that bunch of BS off onto that they were rebuilding. But they're not. And if they are, we got to rebuild. The White Sox got to rebuild like the Mariners are because everyone should be rebuilding like them. They've had an outstanding start to the season, and Daniel Vogelbach is a big reason why they have.
Now, I want to go over to the pitching side. Can I package 2 people together as kind of like a brand? You
certainly can.
The reason why I'm packaging them together is because they are both from the Detroit Tigers, and to no surprise, most of these guys are on our team. Because that's what I do. I look for the guys that are kind of up and coming and kind of playing some hot baseball right now. And one's a starter, one's a reliever. And the starter is Matthew Boyd. If this guy is available in your league, which odds are he is because he's only claimed in about 40% of ESPN leagues, he right now has the ERA is just over a 3, which isn't great, but 23 strikeouts and a whip of a 1.24 in 3 starts so far this season. He's had a game against Toronto where, yes, he gave up 3 runs. That was the worst game ERA-wise, but he had 10 strikeouts. Then 13 strikeouts against the Yankees. Then came down to earth a little bit today against the Cleveland Indians, where he only had 6. But he's a guy that's been doing well, especially of late with the ERA. And the other one is his closer, Shane Green. He's been a guy
Shane Green.
He's been a guy where ERA is at a 0. That's going to help you. The whip is at a .43. That's going to help you. He has had 7 saves so far, Brandon. Every single, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he's been in 8 games, 1 inning apiece. 7 of the 8 appearances, he's had a save. Go and pick him up. I know that he's owned in 80% of leagues, so you're probably sitting there going, well, Ricky, he's not available in my league. But for some chance, if he is available, I like those odds of having 8 games and saving 7 of them. That is a great return, and right now he is the number 1 ranked relief pitcher in ESPN.
I also want to say again for the... actually, I don't know why I said I want to say again because I didn't say anything before, but I would like to mention that the Detroit Tigers were not supposed to be much of anything this year. They weren't. They were not at all. And I think that with the Tigers off to a strong start, they're 8-4. They're first in the American League Central, which a lot of people I know say is very weak. And, well, this year it looks pretty pathetic. But the Chicago White Sox, actually, the one thing the Chicago White Sox lead in that division is runs scored with 50. However, they have given up 77 runs, which is 3rd worst in all of baseball. But, Ricky, anybody else that you want to throw out there?
Zach Eflin of the Phillies has 2 starts so far against the Washington Nationals and the Minnesota Twins. He's 2-0. He's got 14 strikeouts, an ERA of a .75, and a whip of a .83. Go ahead and pick him up. He's owned in just over 50% of leagues.
And I am going to wrap up our podcast tonight by saying and telling you a guy not to pick up.
I got one of those too.
That is Chris Davis from the Baltimore Orioles.
You don't like history, Brian?
I feel so terribly bad for his last 50, Chris Davis. A batting average of 121, no homers, 2 RBIs. God bless him. God bless you, Chris Davis. I feel for you, man. I feel for you.
The one that I am going to bring up is this isn't one of okay, I'm going to actually kind of ask a question here. This isn't one of, hey, go ahead for sure and drop him. Because I dropped him and someone else in our league has now picked him up. Did I make a mistake? Of course, we got Nomar
Garciaparra?
No, not Garciaparra. We got Omar
Narvaez
of Seattle now. Was I too quick or too hasty to drop JT Realmuto?
Probably.
He wasn't doing anything. He's not doing anything in the start. And here's the thing I love.
What has he done now?
Here's the thing I love. Here are the games leading into when I dropped him. Ready?
Sure.
0 for 3, 2 for 4, 1 for 2, 0 for 5, 1 for 4, 0 for 3, 0 for 2, 1 for 4, 1 for 3. The day I dropped him, 3 for 5. What does he do today? 0 for 3. He's a guy that's batting a .257, but only 6 runs, 1 home run, 5 RBIs. He just hasn't been doing anything. And today, you were telling me before we recorded the podcast, what? Nationals were beating the Phillies 14-0?
Final score 15-1.
That's a football score. That is almost a football score, Brandon. So, I look at it and of course he's picked up, and good job to Kim, who has him now in our league. But I wonder, I'm throwing it out to you and I'll throw it out to them. Was I too hasty to drop JT Realmuto and pick up someone else at catcher?
You know what, though? That's one of those things. It's all about, with fantasy, too, it's a lot about timing. It's a lot about timing. Do you drop someone at the right time? Do you trade someone at the right time? Do you pick someone up at the right time? I mean, it's that way in all fantasy sports. And you can't, you certainly...
I'm not kicking myself too hard. We're still in first place.
yeah, you're not kicking yourself at all.
It's like the Woody Harrelson. I'm dabbing those tears with all the money that we're making in first place.
But I do not necessarily fault you for dropping a guy who was 0 for. I mean, getting a couple of hits splashing a couple of hits on there every once in a while, but it's about timing for sure. But if there's someone better out there, you have to go and get them. You can't be timid because they're supposed to do good this year. Well, they're not. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Supposed to and what they are doing are two different things.
Yeah, and the other guy I want to look up, I picked him up recently, had to drop him, is Walker too. Was doing good at the beginning of the year. After I picked him up for Arizona. First baseman, Christian Walker. He was a guy that was a bench role and then took over the starting role now that Jake Lamb is out for 6 weeks with a grade 2 left quad strain. Was doing good, but ever since I picked him up, 0 for 4, 0 for 4, 0 for 3, 1 for 3, 1 for 4. Eventually, I was like, screw it. We're done with you, and we're going to pick up someone else because it's all about runs. It's like, you were hot before I picked you up. Now I picked you up. You ain't doing well. I'm going to drop you and try to get someone else here so that we don't fall too much in these categories and stay in first place.
I was thinking of Christian Stewart.
Yes.
The rookie for Detroit, where if you have not picked him up...
Not to be confused with the actor Christian Stewart.
And if he is available, I know his average is not good. It's 175. He has 2 homers, 10 RBIs for Detroit. This is a guy who...
First baseman?
I think is going to be... Could be coming around. Left fielder.
Let me see if he is there. He is owned in 11% of leagues. Right now, his average isn't that great.
I know.
But yeah, besides that, 4 runs, 10 ribbies. Yeah, really with him, as I'm looking at his stats, he did really good against the Royals. Really good in that 3 games.
A lot of people are doing well against the Royals.
It's like, look at it this way. So his games up until the Royals, he went, 1 hit? Yeah, 1 hit in 6 games. But then against the Royals, 1 for 3, 2 for 3, and 2 for 4. And in that second game had a home run, 4 ribbies, and a run. So a grand slam, basically.
It was.
And then he even had a run and 2 ribbies in the second game. So he just did... That one I would look at and I go, did you just do really good against the Royals? Let's see what he does against Cleveland. Went 1 for 4. Let's see what he does against Cleveland.
Miguel Cabrera is back this year as well. Mm-hmm. He's batting at 286. No homers, 3 RBIs, only 2 runs. 35 years old. Miggy is not the same, unfortunately.
Yeah, like the average isn't bad, but the only reason why I wouldn't pick him up, right, he's not giving you any runs, home runs, or ribbies, or stolen bases.
No.
He's a guy that if it was late in the season and I needed something to boost my average to gain a little bit, then I would pick up a Miggy right now. But right now I would stay away from him because he doesn't really give you any value besides that 263 average.
Yeah. Well, Ricky, any other final thoughts tonight on this week's episode of What's Your Fantasy?
Let's hope the Cubs can get some more wins. Am I right?
I am thinking the same thing for the Southsiders. It's a rough start.
It's been a rough start for the Cubs. As we're losing right now as I speak, 5-2, bottom of the 8th. Damn Pirates.
It's not over.
Pirates aren't even good this year. They're better than us, though. We're 3-7. Damn. We suck.
White Sox are 3-8. Don't feel too bad.
How's Javi doing? Javi today for us, 1 for 4 with a ribby. So
1 for 4 with a ribeye steak.
Yep. 1 for 4 with a ribby. I mean, not terrible.
All right, Ricky. Anything else?
You Darvish pitched today. That's why we're losing.
Well, that'll explain it. Well, folks, that is going to wrap it up for us today. Another episode of What's Your Fantasy. Love talking fantasy baseball and baseball in general. So much fun. And with baseball comes usually better weather. And better weather is around the corner. If we talk about it enough, we'll speak it into existence. So that is going to do it for us today. Again, remember, if you want to support this podcast and the channel, head to patreon.com, become a patron, and every dollar that you support us with this year in 2019 is going to go towards a new studio, which we very desperately not want. It's a need.
This thing's like a small box. It's like I'm going to start calling the studio the sardine can. Because it's basically like we're in a sardine can.
Doesn't smell like one, though.
Well, some days it does. When it gets hot in here, it gets a little stanky.
Ooh.
It gets that man stank.
That's gross. That's so gross, and I think sardines do smell better than that. So, for Ricky Widmer, I'm Brandon Swanson saying so long, everybody, and have a great rest of your week and a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.